On this edition of NuVoodoo Live, we continue our journey through Ratings Prospect Study 24, conducted in June. And today we hope to answer the question for how long and how often you use social media and other apps, because we know there's a strong correlation between the frequency and length of usage and the likelihood to move meters significantly for a station. But Leela, as we always do, for those who may be watching this video the first time, let's review the specs of our study.
Sure. A little under 3,200 people, 14 to 64 nationwide. And we nosed it up into 55, 64 this time so that we get all of the Gen Xers and the last 5 years, call them the late boomers of the baby boom, the 60 to 64s. Compensated online sample, as we always do, fielded at the tippy end of May and the very beginning of June. So you've got a little better than a quarter of the sample down at Gen Z, the 14 to 27s. To go younger than that and get all of Gen Z, we'd have to get parental permission in some states. And we're only a couple of years till Gen Alpha starts, infiltrating into this sample. Then the millennials, then the Gen Xers, and then this cohort of late baby boomers included in the sample as well.
All right. And then we always like to track these kind of what's the inclination to participate in the radio ratings, because those are the people that matters. And more specifically, who will participate in the radio ratings, who will actually give radio stations enough TSL to make a difference in the ratings.
That's right. And it had tracked along, Mike, for a long, long time. It was about 20% who qualified as what we'll call RPS, the ratings prospects. It was about, 1 in 5 said that they would participate in the ratings with a series of questions that we've been using now since we opened the doors here at NuVoodoo. And it's tracked along right in that kind of range. We saw it tick up in June.
And that 1 in 5, just to be really clear, is that you're outlining the total percentage of folks that are inclined to participate in the ratings, whether it's lightly or heavily, as listeners.
You're 100% right. And we saw it tick up to 22%, 14% among the RPS non-heavy group, and 8% tracking along among the RPS heavies, those who listen to broadcast radio at least an hour a day. And then in January, we saw that come down just a little bit, 17%, 7% hanging in there as the RPS heavies. And then this June, oh my, that's 5% RPS heavies and about 10% RPS non-heavies. So now we're significantly under 1 in 5. It's a total of 15% we're likely to show up within the rating sample, and 5% who give radio enough time spent listening that they're going to be the people who can help you move the meter, to make a pun out of it.
So this explains what I heard from a smart programmer at one of the companies we work with, who said that Nielsen is about to lower the average quarter-hour threshold to 3 minutes from 5. It's a rumor anyway. I haven't heard the news myself officially.
Listen, the numbers that we're showing here are among a research-friendly sample who've completed a 20-minute online interview to be in this computation. So this is already a pretty nice group of people for getting these kinds of data. Imagine, the lift at the Nielsen side, where we're sifting through everybody to try to find people who will either carry the diary or carry the meter. Ooh. So it's a small population, and the population who give enough time spent listening to radio to really help you get that next tenth of a rating point in this upcoming book. That's a teeny, teeny sliver.
And so because the haystack hasn't changed, but the number of needles within the haystack is, the incidence rate is much lower, we need to do whatever we can using NuVoodoo data and then marketing techniques to shrink the haystack to find more needles. And the needles that are really important are that little blue sliver on the far right, the RPS heavies who give radio an hour of TSL a day. And so we're going to validate some things that we've long ago proven, but with the latest numbers, that that group uses more media and more often and for a longer period of time. So let's start with social media in terms of the chronic level of app use in a week.
Hours per week across the past 7 days. How much time in total did you spend with social media? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, X, Twitter. We were trying to paint all of them. And 3 in 10 across the entire sample, hit that threshold. Among those who are likely to give radio its report card, The
Yep.
RPS yes group, almost 2 in 5, 38%. That's a
Yep.
pretty big lift. But
That RPS yes group can be filled with, and if you've got any kind of sophisticated Nielsen data or internal extrapolations that you do, it can be a whole bunch of 100 AQHs until you get to those. That very few, that very small collection of folks on the front page or two of your extrapolation report that give time spent listening to radio that matters. The RPS
and
heavy.
those are likely to be the RPS heavies, those who listen to broadcast radio at least an hour a day, so 7 hours a week. And over half of them say they've spent at least 10 hours a week with social media. That's an awful lot of time spent using, an awful lot of opportunities to get your message in front of those eyeballs or your audio in front of those ears, to make your point, to sell your station, to bring them up to date on your promotion, to get them in thrall with your personalities.
They're more likely to see your organic social posts and your paid social posts. All right, so let's break it down by generation. Now, remember, this entire bucket is social media. It's not specific to one platform, at least not in this question.
Right. So at Gen Z, the 14 to 27s, just over half say they spend at least 10 hours a week with these platforms. It's just a tick younger or smaller, rather, at the millennials up to age 43. And then the cliff starts to happen as we hit Gen X, and I've included the 5 years of baby boomers that are included in this sample. So now it's dropped from 51% at Gen Z to 28% for Gen X and the few baby boomers that we have in this sample. So a different kind of profile, but it just depends on who you're trying to track, trying to get your message in front of. If they're Gen X and older, okay, maybe you're going to need some different kinds of platforms, but social media as it applies to Gen Z and millennials is really, really potent.
And then the RPS heavies, of course, which are, even the index higher than any of the generational groups that are inclined to
Sure.
participate in the ratings. Okay. So now let's switch from duration to frequency. Frequency matters because a lot of radio stations have very limited marketing budgets. They not only have to narrow the number of channels they can afford to, impact their hot zips, but they have to, their general manager or market manager expects them to get ratings after the first week of the contest.
Sure.
And so frequency matters.
Right. So this is the bar here is just set at daily usage.
Yep.
It's not a really high bar.
Yeah.
And we've got Google included here and YouTube. I mean, I think YouTube was at least was going to be a social media channel, and it's turned out to be, I liked what you said, Mike.
Oh, it's like a Swiss Army knife. You use it to, for your email, you use it to search. And I would venture to guess that search is probably driving the answers here more often than anything else. But of course,
Sure.
once you click on something that's part of the Google ecosystem, when you search something, an article about a fact you need to check while you're having beers with somebody, you click on that article. Well, you are on the Google Display Network getting hammered with advertising. So the Google usage translates into advertising opportunity.
And YouTube also was intended to be, hey, upload the pictures, or rather the videos of your cute cat or your groovy fun dog, but it's really turned into a TV network.
It's a TV network. That's right. Yep.
But below that, we've got the meta duo, Facebook and Instagram. Facebook has that hold at Gen Z, and they don't care because that's covered by Instagram. And then at Gen Z, you've got the kind of I don't know, CHR fight of the past between Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat. Which
Yep.
one has the feature set that group of people is most inclined to use? But it's Instagram that shoulders the best up into the millennial generation.
Yep.
TikTok a little bit less effectively, and Snapchat, at least at this point, is more the Gen Z only kind of flavor.
Daily use, I think, is probably, I'll correct myself, it's probably more of a reach metric. Now, of course, you could have weekly use, but really, if you're advertising or posting social media and trying to impact radio listening or really any consumer-based, if somebody's using something less than daily, the chances that you're actually going to reach and influence a significant number of those folks is pretty small. So we look at daily use as our reach potential. And of course, the daily reach is here just everybody, regardless of whether or not they're inclined to participate in the ratings. But now we put those filters on.
Right. And the numbers go up, and particularly at Google, particularly at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, when you get to the RPS heavies, that's a big number. That's better than 2 and 3. TikTok, better than 3 and 5. So these are people who are, within your reach scope
Yep.
on any of those platforms.
And you can mix and match the channel selection based on demographic appeal, and that's what this next slide helps you do.
Sure, and we can also do it by format constituency, at least at a broad national level. We can look at that too, although I don't think we've included that data because
Yeah, you're able to look at RPS country, RPS CHR,
yeah,
RPS
yeah,
hip hop, etc.
yep, all that.
RPS spoken word.
Yep.
Yep. And so the takeaway here again is that even the RPS inclined X pluses on the top three
Hmm.
are engaged fully. So the broadest reach is going to happen with Google, YouTube, Facebook, but then Instagram and TikTok are probably better choices, more efficient choices if you are targeting young.
Yeah, if you're targeting, those who at least I think of as more digital native, the Gen Zs and the millennials, then more apps come into play.
Yep. And the numbers really don't look bad for Gen Z on a lot of platforms that are more appealing to the parents. I always like to think of it, you got kind of two universes, right? Your peers
Hmm.
on, Snap and TikTok and Instagram, and then mom, dad, and Uncle Fester on Facebook. And then everybody watches YouTube on their TV. Okay. So now let's look at, we're going to start
Raise
looking
the
at,
bar, right? 4 times a week, four
yep,
times a day, rather.
yep. And this is where the frequency impact that I was describing earlier probably applies more.
Right. And so this is where you're going to start to build frequency. Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, I should take action on that. That's what we're trying to build here. And you can see how nicely the numbers stair step up, particularly among the RPS yes group, and even more so among those who are not only going to give radio its report card, but have the potential to really impact a station's AQH. So YouTube, Facebook at over half, Instagram real close to half, 47% could,
Yeah.
I can't quite say a majority, but boy, that's a pretty sizable group. TikTok also, possible at 42%, and it would follow the same generational profile that we'd shown in the earlier slide.
All right, now let's widen the lens really quick. We'll stay at that 4 bar or that 4 time a day bar. And now we just look at the RPS generations.
Right. And you can imagine we've got the heavies here right about the middle of the page. And while the generational breakouts aren't the RPS heavies, there just aren't enough of them in this sample. But you can imagine that would follow kind of um, that same sort of profile that we're seeing across the RPS millennials and across the RPS Gen Z and Gen Xers. So that at the young end, you've got an awful lot of
Oh.
action among RPS heavies for TikTok, for example, and certainly Instagram.
And if I were battling for my share of corporate marketing allocation, this is I can hear the pause button being pressed across the country here and the screen grabs being taken. This is the slide to justify your media plan to your general manager, market manager, or corporate overlord. All right, so let's raise the bar one more time. And again, this is all about impact, right? The more a constituency uses a media platform, the faster your message is going to make an impact. And we've already shared with you in previous videos the ad attention numbers. And so if you marry this to this kind of uber compulsive frequency, you start to see that 1 or 2 channels are enough for most radio station formats.
Right. So this is 10 times a day or more. That's just twitchy. That's habitual. That's defeating boredom, hoping that, oh, maybe I'll see something fun on Facebook, or I got to check in on Instagram to see what my friends are into and see if there's some cute little reel to distract me for a moment. And the numbers by specific generation, especially, have these great pops, 40%, 10 times a day among Gen Zs, a third for millennials at Facebook. And frankly, it's better than a quarter for YouTube and Facebook among Gen X. Those are big numbers.
All right, so we're going to give you 2 takeaways, things that you can do with this data. The first is, of course, we have used to refer to as the foundational four. TikTok graduated into that group of superhero ad platforms that command ad attention at specific demographic levels, but among RPS heavies, they'll drive frequency of message so that you can have both ubiquitous reach and fast impact in the zip codes where the meters are. And of course, what I always like to share with people is that NuVoodoo, when we take a station as a client, we're able to upload their database and create what's called a custom audience and a lookalike audience. So we can find birds of a feather that are like the people that they already have a relationship with in hot zips. And we do that on any of these platforms. But in addition, since we have been doing studies like this and individual market studies for clients, music testing and perceptual studies, we've also mapped most markets with tons of survey-friendly, likely RPS yes radio listeners. And we also know what their time spent listening is. So we have that seed list. We input that in. We superimpose the hot zips and the demos. We create lookalike audiences from that list. And by merging the radio station list of likely listeners with our list of research-friendly heavy radio listeners, we can create micro-targeting that's very specific to a radio station's rating. So suddenly those couch cushions under under the furniture, they can come into play and make an impact in Nielsen.
Yep. And listen, I would contend that a data-driven decision is always a better decision. And, just as we can smoke out to find who are the likely ratings participants and who are the heavy listeners who are most likely to give you that boost in the next book in our RPS studies, even in a tough budgetary time, I can do a 300 sample perceptual interview with about 60 to 80 questions. So it's a 10-minute interview, about half the length of what we use for our RPS study and would use for a full-size station perceptual. But because it's a shorter interview and because the sample's a little smaller, we can turn them around in less than a month. So it's ASAP for actionable, speedy, affordable, perceptual study, but it's less than 10 grand. So instead of guessing at the result, or listen, we all make decisions all the time without the benefit of data, but sometimes the decision's that important, or we're really not sure. The collective instincts of the managerial team are like, I'm pretty sure it's this, but not really. Well, for under 10K, we can be really sure. And I think that's a pretty good deal.
And if you call Lee today, you can have results back and implemented by the middle of the September book at probably the latest, or the middle of the October book, anyway, around October 1st at this point.
Easily.
And there's your contact information.
Yep, phone number is easy enough. And Lee, Leigh, at NuVoodoo.com. Or if you can't remember that, and I respect that, tell me more at NuVoodoo.com works too. And
you've also been busy crunching this data all summer. And I think you now have cobbled together a big enough presentation where you can share it with not only NuVoodoo clients, but people that might be interested in working with us. And you're glad to do that as a free service.
Absolutely. Get your screen grabbing equipment out and have at us.
Keep watching the channel you're seeing this video posted on. We're going to be cranking out these videos and covering all the basics, not just the marketing side of things, but also the programming side. We've got videos about AI voice perceptions. We've got contest cache optimization. We've got the latest data about national contests. We've got tune-in catalysts and tune-out catalysts, a whole bunch more. So keep your eyes fixated on your computer or mobile screen. We'll be back with another edition of NuVoodoo Live.
Recording stopped.